Hey there! Welcome to Dirt Rich, seasonal conversations on food and farming. I'm Katie Federal, and we are just getting started with our second season, so we're glad you're here. Since we're also starting a new year, I thought it would be fitting to begin with seeds. So today, we'll hear from Zachary Paige of Vergas, Minnesota, and North Circle Seeds. Zachary's seed company and collective is also in its second season, and he's got plenty to share on seed saving and the value of community and diversity in the practice. So let's get right to it. Hey, Zach. Thanks for joining today.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Oh, pretty well. Just sitting here in my seed office.
Why don't you tell us a bit about where you're from and what brought you to Minnesota?
So I'm from Long Island. I was teaching music out in Westchester in 2010 and 11. I started working on sustainable farms in Vermont, and I kind of wanted to experience that more. So I put down the music, and on the farm in Vermont, they were a sustainable operation, and I noticed that they didn't save any of their own seeds. So I guess that kind of like sparked something in me where I was thinking, well, how could you call yourself sustainable, sustaining your operation if you're not saving any seeds? And it was just something that I thought was important and useful to learn how to do, since some farms weren't doing it. So that being said, I went to a week-long seed school at Native Seed Search in 2012, met Bill McDormand, and just got really inspired to start like a seed library and a seed company. So 8 years later, I'm starting North Circle Seeds. I went back to Minnesota, and just there's all sorts of seeds in the White Earth Land Recovery Project, which I was working for, and just started organizing them and starting a seed library and starting saving every seed that I could possibly save and learn through doing it. So, and then I kind of stuck around Minnesota because the community was so vibrant, and I just connected with a lot of people, both from the Native community in White Earth and the region, as well as the Sustainable Farming Association. When I first went to the Sustainable Farming Association annual conference in 2013 with Sue Wicca and the Sustainable Food Production course, I just met so many seed savers and was interested in everything that people were doing. And interned at Ryan Pesch's farm, Lida Farm. And now I live about 8 miles away and feels like home in Minnesota here. So I get to grow seeds and with the Minnesota community, with people that have been doing it for a while. So lots of opportunity to learn. And I feel like it's an important place to do it because there's not a lot of seed companies or seed collectives going on in this particular area, the north central area of the country. There's a lot of seed companies out east and a lot out west, but not so much in the central. So yeah, it feels like I'm doing a useful thing with community, and it's a lot of fun to seed with people that are interested in learning, and we're all learning together. So.
Oh, sure. And I mean, first of all, just like being a Minnesotan, that just, warms my little Midwestern heart that you found a nice community here and were able to work together with people.
Yeah.
But then second, you also mentioned initially that like something sparked for you with the seed saving when you first saw that out east. And have you been able to identify like what exactly about seed saving and organic seed production is so important to you that, you've built your business and your life around it?
Yeah, I think it was brought back to when I was hoeing garlic for weeks. They had about 10,000 garlic heads at the farm, and I was just spent a lot of time with nature, and the bobolink birds were flying around with their very strange robotic song. And I think one thing that I was thinking about a lot at that time, which kind of unraveled later, was I had no study with biology or anything with plants prior to this. And I was just thinking, what's the difference between a cultivated crop and a wild crop? Like, why are some foods just left wild and they're fine, and then some are just meticulously cultivated and weeded and farmed? So this question was just stewing in my brain. And then when that question met with the question, why don't sustainable farms save their own seed? I think those two questions collided, and that's kind of what ended up being that spark, and led me to go back to school for a master's in plant breeding, and just interested in how this whole breeding works, and yeah, why we do it, why we farm, and what wild foods are available mixed with what foods people have been farming for about 10,000 years. So it was interesting learning the history and learning more about seed saving generation to generation, and the influence that's had over humankind for the last 12,000 years. But yeah, organic seeds. When I went to school, I was learning about how the organic systems are like the need and the consumer demand for organic has just been growing and growing every year. So I would assume that the demand for organic seed is growing and growing, because organic farms have to choose certified organic seed first. So if that variety is not available, they could go with a variety that is not grown certified organic. But if you have it available as certified organic, they have to choose that. So that's what I'm up to now. We just got certified this year. So next year, 2021, all our seeds will be certified organic. I'm part of the Organic Seed Alliance, which works with a lot of organic seed growers, and it's a small community, but it's vast. I mean, we have so many amazing varieties between us that we're all stewarding, and the seed world, the organic seed world, is a small world. I suppose when we go to the conference every 2 years in Oregon, that it's probably about 400 or 500 people. And I assume about half of us are there. So it's a small amount of people, but making a big, I would like to think we're making a big impact on increasing crop diversity in our own little micro regions and regions. A lot of small seed, the benefit of having small seed companies splattered around the country is so that you're adapting seeds to your microclimates, and then you're sharing them with your community and local environments, and more people are seed saving. And this is the way it was with the land grant institutes about 100 years ago, when the patent office actually gave seeds out for free to all these regions and places that had public access to seeds. But now with patents, it's not that way anymore. So the need for public breeding and adapting seeds to our local environments is a necessity nowadays. But anyway, organic seed, it's grown without chemicals. That's the crux of it. It's grown so they're hardy, and that's what you want to grow anyway. You want to grow a crop without chemical input, because I guess you could think of it as like an athlete. If the athlete's doping up and taking all these steroids and things that are making them perform better, maybe those athletes, like when they're doing the home run year, when was that? Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and all these guys are doping up, and they're all hitting 70 home runs. And okay, well, that's good. Is that sustainable? Probably not. And then they get their awards taken away and all that. But we want to have our seeds hold up. So they're hardy. They're grown in an organic environment. So they're bred to organic environments. So when a lot of these seeds that have these chemical inputs, they're bred and grown and seed saved with those chemical aids. So when you take those away, because those chemical inputs are not sustainable to everybody, not everybody has access to labs that make all sorts of chemicals that are bad for soil health and everything else. Um, but yeah, it's a simpler way to do it, and it's also the way we've been growing and saving seed for the last 10,000 years. So
Right. Yeah, I'm always kind of blown away when to kind of zoom out a bit and remember that a lot of the practices that we kind of take for granted of just like this is just how things are. This is how we've always done them is not true at all, and it's something within the last century or so that it's been introduced, which is just a blip
yeah,
on the scale of agriculture and humans existing at all.
yeah, yeah, we've changed it. We've changed it a lot. I'm not against technology, and I don't have a lot to say on this because I have a lot to learn, but I think there could be really cool, highly technical systems using technology and maybe even AI and whatnot to grow crops in organic systems. I was watching this like really fancy machine like weeding lettuce like in between lettuce plants like
Oh my
with
gosh.
lasers and stuff. It's like, well, it's if it's like solar run and all this stuff, it's like, hey, like that seems okay. If it's yeah, having like new creative innovative things is a good thing.
Oh, I'm curious about your time with White Earth and what you worked on there, what you learned.
Yeah, what I worked on there was working with native seed keepers and organizations like Dream Wild Health and Rowan White, Diane Wilson, and Jessica Greendeer. We're leading this Upper Midwest Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, and we worked on a large grant together where we connected a bunch of tribes from North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, and yeah, it's a really wonderful group of seed savers, and I think the big thing that I've learned with working with the Native American community as well as the sustainable farming community, both in Minnesota and the region, is the benefits of connecting and meeting face to face and having circle meetings where you're just sitting in a circle talking, getting to know more people, listening to other stories, sharing your stories. I think that's where the magic happens. At least that's how I interpret it. There's a lot of technical train the trainer knowledge being passed as well and resources being shared. But maybe I'm just somebody that is a sucker for meeting people face to face uh, and learn that way. Yeah, I think that doesn't happen quite as much perhaps in our day, or maybe that's just always an important thing to do, is to kind of go outside ourselves and go outside our circles and meet people from other tribes or other areas and maybe even just down the road, but learning from their stories and their what they've been seeds that they've been saving and yeah, getting a new perspective.
Oh yeah, from experience, I've always learned a lot from settings and environments like that too, and now I'm really missing that with the pandemic and all. This
Yeah,
sounds like a faraway dream of being able to sit in a circle with a
I
group of
know.
people. Oh man.
Totally. I guess one other thing that we did was these rematriation projects. Rowan coins rematriation as most seed keepers are women from the tribes, and bringing back seeds that were originally from a tribe or a region, and then adapting it and growing it out and then saving it. And then I think the end goal is always to have it as a food source. So it's beyond just saving the seed for seed. And there's so many rare seeds, and there's so many seeds that only have 100 seeds in a jar. And it's pretty daunting to think that, like, it's hard to grow out all of these seeds for their intended food use. There's different strategies that I deal with that by like mixing things together and creating population breeding projects. But with rare seeds that are important to a community or tribal community, you want to be able to keep them pure among just that variety. So if you're growing out like a corn like Bear Island Flint, which I've grown before, you want to make sure that that corn is isolated from other corn because it's wind pollinated. And then you're growing enough in a population, more than 200, probably ideally more than 1,000 plants, and then saving enough from that selected seed. I would say most old corn and most old seeds have inbreeding depression. So the good thing about saving seeds with a community is that many different people might have different sources of that seed. And then when you get together, like in these meetings in person, hang out, you could also get your seeds to commingle and hang out and then share a seed. I could give somebody half my barrel and flint seed, they give me their half. But say you have 10 people growing it out and everybody kind of shares the genetics, and it's all selected for the general cold climate regions or growing something together collectively. So that's where the magic happens with the community shared responsibility of seed genetics with rare varieties. And having those education workshops and trainings on how to isolate things properly is super important, because then the people that you're talking with we're all on the same page now. We all know how to isolate corn, and we all know what we're doing with the different varieties and species, and they all act differently. So yeah. So I was just ranting for a little bit.
No, I'm learning so much, and I appreciate this. And it was also when you started your story talking about having 100 or so seeds in a jar, and I got so nervous thinking about the pressure of trying to make sure that they continue to exist. And
yeah, I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think every person that's like obsessed with seed or obsessed, but grows a lot of varieties has definitely messed up. And yeah, you feel bad because maybe you could have grown something better or stored it better, but there's always next year. And the other thing is, never grow out all your seeds. If you have 100 in the jar, then grow out 25. So you get 4 years to try it. Never grow out all of it. So that's rule number one. If you've got something rare, even if you got 2 seeds, grow 1.
Sure.
So, but yeah, if you've got a small amount, you're not going to want to do a germination test because maybe that's all your seed. For a seed company, we want to germinate 400 seeds per variety. So if you only have 400, can't be doing that.
Right. And I guess, that's where, the community comes in of, thank goodness you don't have to carry the responsibility of the survival of the seed variety all on your own shoulders, and that you can work together and pool your knowledge to,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, grow them out. Well, maybe we should zoom out a bit, and then like what should farmers and gardeners know about seed saving? Like, what are some of the basics? You just gave a good one of don't grow out all of your, precious seed in one go.
Yeah, I suppose like people that have been saving seed already kind of are starting to get a handle on it, and they maybe have their own special varieties that they're growing. So I'd encourage people that are like that are already kind of got their toes wet to maybe try one more variety that they've never seed saved before. So if you're saving your own beans, which is something fairly easy to save, like a bean is a seed. So if you're cleaning your food, then you're cleaning your seeds. And then storing seeds is mainly cool, dark, and dry, and not a lot of temperature changes. And then you definitely want to have your seeds in an area that doesn't have a lot of moisture when you're storing them. That's probably the biggest killer of seed. What I'll do is dry down seed in a dehydrator without the heat mechanism going on. So it's just air blowing through it. And you could leave that on for like days. With squash seed, it takes days to dry it down completely. And then putting it into a paper bag. And then from that point, if you feel like your seeds are really dry, I like to buy silica gel packs. It just helps dry down the seed even further. And then you could put them into something like a mason jar and close the lid with the silica gel packs in there. So those are like kind of good strategies for like any seed. Basically, you want your seed really, really dry, and you want to store it in an environment that's cold or not overly cold, but just that the temperature doesn't go up to 70 and down to 30 every day. So I think the challenges in our region are that we have a short season. So somebody was interested in growing the orange corn blend that we have and asking about, can I plant this later than the genetically modified hybrid corn next door or across the street? Corn is a tricky one. I wouldn't recommend it for a beginning seed saver. So the self-pollinated crops are probably the way to go. So self-pollinated crops are like lettuce, beans, peas. Peas are probably the easiest to seed save out of anything because they grow really vigorously. And then something that you could challenge yourself with is radish. So radish is like one of the easiest things to grow. And then they'll grow a stalk and then seed pods, and you could eat the seed pods, which are a new food, and then watch the seed pod dry down.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I pretty unsuccessfully grew radishes a couple years ago where they were just very small. They were also in a planter box. It was an experiment, but the seed pods were very fruitful. I had a ton of those, and I tried to save the seed, but I didn't know I could just eat them. That's amazing.
Yeah, you could eat them when they're like green, and then you'd maybe wait another month or two to have them dry down like woody, and then at that point there'll be little seeds inside. And if you want to be sharing all your seed and just grow something that you want to like share with everybody, try growing ground cherries, because you could literally grow 1 or 2 plants of ground cherries and get thousands upon thousands of seeds. I think I counted how many ground cherry seeds I had from like 40 plants, and I'm pretty sure I have over 300,000 seeds. So it's a little bit more than I think I need. And that's something else to consider too, is like how many seeds is your crop going to produce? So some things like tomatoes might have 50 to 100 seeds inside them. And then beans would only have like maybe 50 to 100 per plant. Well, yeah, and that's per plant though. So yeah, something to consider is, how much you're going to get out of it in terms of seed saving and how many plants you need to start with. For something like tomato, if you're just gardening and you're just looking to get your seeds for the next year, you might only have to save 1 to 2 tomatoes, which might get you 50 to 100 seeds back.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and that's just a small
not too big of a deal.
Of your yield, yeah. Okay. Well, you touched a little bit on kind of the role that our climate, where we are in Minnesota, plays, and like how we should be seed saving with your corn example. Are there, other influences that our environment up here plays, or on how we save seeds, and maybe even why we save seeds?
Yeah. So number one is like there's not a lot of seed collectives going on in Minnesota generally, and this whole upper Midwest generally. So the more people save seed, the better, and connecting up with the community at North Circle Seeds or what they're up to in the Finland areas is awesome. They're David Abaz and Corey Melby and a bunch of seed savers up there having their own smaller, more micro collective. And then we're kind of like the state collective. So it's like anybody could get together in any form or way or gardeners and farmers meeting up and growing out what they love to grow out. So I'd say like follow your own instinct on what you love to grow, and then maybe save the seed of those plants that you love to grow. I really love garlic and corn. So if I wasn't a crazy seed person saving everything, I'd probably choose garlic and corn to save. And you have to save garlic anyway, because that's the garlic. But yeah, if you're attracted to squash and you're growing it every year and you're really excited by it, that would be a fun thing to seed save. Because then you could start selecting for flavor or color. Maybe the inside of the squash, you really want a dark orange, or you want the sweetest squash. If you taste test and save only the sweet ones, the genetics will be showing that the next year and the next year. So that's the fun part of seed saving, is it's really malleable to your own desires, your personal interests of what you find that you love to eat. And you could really change your food by saving them year to year. I think the practical standpoint or the economic standpoint is that every year you save seed, if you're saving it at your own farm or garden, then you're really saving it to your like specific microclimate, like very your own like plot of land. So your seed is going to do better than any other seed out there because it's adapting to your specific climate conditions. And that's something that is extremely useful and beneficial and disease pressure as well. So that'll be useful to your yields.
Yeah, that echoes what I think Jerry Ford was telling us in a couple episodes we've done on garlic earlier this year, and just how he stopped getting garlic seed from other parts of the country. And by now, I mean, after farming for so many years, that garlic that he saves every year is perfectly suited for his own farm.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes you'll try a new variety or a new crop on your farm and it won't really do well that first year. Like the Ukrainian squash, 2 years ago I tried it and I think only like 2 plants made it and like 5 squash. So I had to go back and get more seed. But then those seeds that I saved, those from those 5, couple hundred seeds, it grew amazing this year. So it's like it almost needed a year to kind of figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting, and how like quickly it can adapt too.
Yeah.
Just within one growing season.
And even if it was my fault, even if it's the farmer's fault for some reason, I didn't fertilize it enough or this or that, I gave it a stressful situation, right? So like those 5 plants, no matter what went wrong, those were the strongest ones that came through. So I always think of things in a positive light. So if you have a massive failure, you have a frost that kills every single tomato plant, but one tomato plant did not die. I mean, it's like, that's a huge success. I don't think about all those ones that are dead. I think about the one that survived, and now I'm going to save those seeds, and now I got something interesting. So it's a very optimistic, I think it's a glass half full kind of thing to get into, because you're always thinking about selection. We're always doing that anyway. We're always selecting the best fruits for the market. So when you're seed saving, you kind of have to do double that, because you want to save your best fruits for seed saving too. So you will have to up your plantings, because if you're saving things, you don't want to just save the end of the year's fruits that aren't that good and have cracks in them, maybe, or from plants that, because you want to be looking at everything. You want to look at the plant structure. You want to look at the leaves. You want to look at which plants have less late blight. So all these are the considerations going into seed saving as well, when you get to that step 2, I suppose, of seed saving, when you're really looking at the physiological structure of the plant, and you're asking yourself, do I really want to save seed from this plant? Because you might have a really nice ear of corn, but it's on the ground because the plant lodged. So it's like, do I want the genetics of stock lodging prone plant, even though the ear is nice? So you want to take into consideration how the plant is doing, not just the fruit as well.
Oh, it's a great point. Oh, are there other challenges that, growers might experience with saving seeds? You've definitely touched on a few already.
Yeah, I think like learning about all the possible disease that goes into each species and what you have to consider. So yeah, if you're like saving tomato seed, maybe one that's doesn't have a lot of late blight would be a good thing to consider. And yeah, there's all kinds of bacterial wilt and virus, and they all kind of, or most of them kind of work on a spectrum. So a lot of these viruses and bacteria is like, they're in the soil. And if you're rotating your crops and you're doing everything right, you'll lessen the chance that they'll have a devastating effect on your yield or plant. But they might be there. Some of these diseases aren't completely deadly but then you want to watch out for if they're seed-borne diseases, because you don't want to have those. And there's things you could do like freeze your seed, put them in a freezer for a few days. But generally, yeah, you could look up which variety that you're saving and just kind of look up the common diseases that they might have and watch out for that.
And before we started this episode, you had mentioned something about sharing the risk being a benefit of community seed banking, and yeah, wondering what you can tell us about that and how that might work in practice.
Yeah, that's what I hope we're trying to do with North Circle Seeds. It's been hard to know with the pandemic. I think the thing that I'll go back to about the important aspect of a community is basically like meeting up as much as you can, having parties, having opportunities to get together and gather. So if you're not doing that in person, I spent a lot of time on the phone, a few Zoom calls, and we had a Zoom meeting with Organic Seed Alliance, and I was just like almost in tears because I was just like so happy to see like, oh, I'm the seed people.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's like 50 people on the call, and like I know like half
Wow.
of them because it's such a small world, and you don't realize that we go to conferences and we see a lot of people sparingly throughout the year, but with COVID, we kind of have to make that time either on the phone or however we do it, maybe writing letters and sending seeds. But yeah, I think like managing a seed company, you definitely have to keep in touch with people a lot, which is fun because you get to hear how things are going, when that seed was planted, when it's projected to be harvested, and then depending on what crop, I'll go to the farm and either help harvest or just have a minute to chat about how it went. So growing seeds in a collective is super important and fun, and there's different and necessary, especially for crops that are cross-pollinated crops. So I don't have a ton of fields. I just have like 1 2-acre field and then another 2-acre field, and they're both isolated, so I could grow corn on either field, but I can't grow my 7 varieties of corn. So corn is one. As a seed collective, I need other growers, and I like that. I like that there are certain crops it's just necessary for other people to grow. Same with the squash, and I don't have a lot of cucumbers right now, but we want to grow a delicata out. So David Abbas grew that this year. But that's cucurbita pepo. So that would cross with the pumpkin that I grew this year. So that wouldn't be good. So yeah, there's just like, there's different ways to do it. And there's different reasons. I'm just obsessed with peppers. So I have like pollination cages, and there's ways to do it that way too, where you're caging off different crops. So the thing to know about seed saving, if you're like, one thing to know is like, know the species of your plant, because only within that species will there be a potential to cross pollinate.
Yeah, well, let's hear more about you mentioned like David Abaz was growing the delicata squash out. Yeah, tell us about like what some SFA members are up to up at North Circle Seeds and the Seed Collective.
Yeah, so we had more growers this year than last year, and I'm gonna guess we'll probably just keep having more and more. Although we went certified organic, so the collective aspect might be, if growers are not certified, then either we'll put that out as a not certified seed, or maybe they'll grow it as a seed increase, and then I'll grow it the next year. So yeah, Eric Highmark and Alyssa and Scott Ryan, they had a project to grow out the blue corn. So this is like the biggest blue corn planting I've ever done with this mix, and it's a really fun, interesting mix with a lot of Mexican genetics and land races and just old blue corn varieties just mixed together. I essentially just want to see a blue corn that's kind of like semi-dense, semi-flour, that's perfect for blue cornbread and tortillas. And they had a lot of fun growing it. Because of the COVID pandemic, the market wasn't there for all of the corn, so we have a lot extra. But it was good too, because I have some extra for seed, and we were able to do a harder selection. So just choosing the best of the best of the best years, and got some really beautiful, like 16-inch or 12 to 16-inch long cobs that were just phenomenal. And yeah, Eric has a Maple Ridge bread company, and they're baking bread with gluten-free blue corn meal. And yeah, so we're working together as SFA members, and yeah, they're over in Aiken. Yeah, and then Alyssa Jacobson, I don't know if she's a SFA member or not, but Alyssa, if you're listening, you're going to have to be an SFA member now.
We got her. All right.
Yeah. She works with Open Hands Farm. She also does her own growing. And she grew beans on certified organic land. And even though beans are easy to seed save, it's hard to save a lot of them if you don't have the right machinery. So she grew out 4 varieties of beans, of heirloom bean seed. So it was a really good connection. Yeah, David Abaz up in the Finland area, and Corey Melby. Corey provided a pea to us. We're going to call it a Finskagen snow. Finskagen, I think I'm saying it right, is the name of their farm, Finskagen Farm. And Corey and Pam provided that seed that they'd been saving for a while. I felt like it made a better snow pea than a sweet pea. And they're just super prolific. And then he was saying that they also dry them down and crack them for porridge or soup. And I did a little of that, and they were really tasty that way too. So yeah, we've got a new variety from SFA member, and yeah, we've been doing that for a lot of our seed varieties. Greg Reynolds provided the Perron sprayless tomato. I believe it's got its name because you don't have to spray it with anything, because it's got such good disease resistance.
Oh, wow.
Greg also provided a lot of seed to North Circle Seeds. Let me think the other varieties. Well, this year he provided one from Adaptive Seeds called Maria Nagy. And it is by far the sweetest, best paste tomato. So it's from, I think it's an heirloom from Romania that had been growing out in Oregon for a while with Adaptive Seed Company. And then Greg had been selecting it for Minnesota climate here. And they're kind of like, they're shaped like a heart, and they just got the best tomato flavor, I thought, this year.
Gosh, yeah, this is making me hungry. I did not anticipate this talking about seeds. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, the Ukrainian squash came from David Massey. And yeah, Sue Wicca has been growing out her early scarlet horn carrot and some hot peppers. Andy Hayner grew out the Jimmy Red corn. He's been growing it for like 3 years now and is doing such a great job with it. That corn comes from Kentucky, which is a very rare corn they used to make whiskey out of. But yeah, there's some SFA members that are involved. And John Beaton grew out the pinky popcorn this year, and he had a lot of fun with it and got a good yield.
Well, if people want to get involved or with your seed collective or learn more about certain varieties of seeds, where can they find you? How can they get in touch?
Yeah, so we've got a podcast called Seed Stories. I think we've got over 10 episodes, maybe 15 now, talking with seed savers. So we kind of go into the different varieties and species. We'll actually go into how to seed save those. So if you find an episode on tomato, you could expect to hear some seed saving tips throughout the episode. So that's one way to learn. And then feel free to get in touch. I've got contact information on our Facebook page, North Circle Seeds, and you can find all our new varieties on our website, www.northcircleseeds.com. And yeah, don't be afraid to post a question. I love seed saving questions. I probably spend more time answering beginner seed saving questions than anything else, just because it gets me excited about talking about all the possibilities. And so even if you have a very beginning type of question, that's kind of my favorite to answer and talk about. But yeah, if you're interested in growing seed, all of our seed is open pollinated, meaning that you could save the seed from the seed that we grow. And we're part of a open source seed initiative, and that's a pretty cool initiative to look up as well. All the seeds that are pledged in that open seed source initiative are pledged to not have any restrictions on the seed. So you could save the seed and work with it. There's a few varieties that I'm trying to make new varieties and then pledge those varieties to that initiative. And then once they're pledged, then it's basically the opposite of what Monsanto Bayer does. They say, we're putting a patent or a utility patent on a seed and you can't save it or else you'll go to jail. We're saying the exact opposite. We're saying we're pledging this not to have any restrictions ever. And you can freely save the seed and please share it. So if you do get seed from North Circle Seed, know that you can save it. And it's kind of, the company is kind of made for that. It's like, it's open pollinate is what it's called, or heirloom. And yeah, we're trying to grow some things out that are diverse and interesting, as well as some standards like Wisconsin 55 tomato. We don't want to get too weird. We want to grow like good crops for good food and yield well. And that's kind of like our number one. And our number two is selected to our climate, as well as growing diverse foods with diverse communities. We're growing out African eggplants and Japanese eggplants, and the corn's from Mexico. We're making tortillas, and we're working with growers with the hot peppers, Latino community. Yeah, so a lot of it's a lot of fun, and I'd encourage people to try and save some of our seed. We're right here in Minnesota, so it's going to do well. My neighbor was growing seeds he bought from a hardware store or something like that, and then he grew out the butternut squash, and he's like, all your butternut squash seed came up, but none of my other seed came up. And I was like, well, yeah, you live next door to me. Like, I think it's going to all work out pretty well for you.
Oh
So
man. Yeah, there we go. Like the adaptability in action there.
yeah, exactly. So yeah,
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll put those links you mentioned in our show notes too for folks. And yeah, we'll be sure to have you on an episode in the future for planning your garden during the winter for some growing seeds throughout the next season.
yeah, that'd be great. So if you're a Sustainable Farming Association member, you can get a 10% discount from North Circle Seeds. Details pending, but we'll get out a mailer soon enough. I think the way we'll do it is just email me or contact me. I'm a member, I want the discount, and I'll give you a discount code.
Excellent. Yeah, that'll be a nice little treat for members. And
Yeah,
just a reminder too to members that you get free registration to our virtual annual conference this year. So
cool.
it's a great time to join if you want some seeds and you want some knowledge from the conference.
Definitely.
Dirt Rich is produced by the Sustainable Farming Association. We believe that agriculture, done well, heals. For more resources or to tap into the Farmer to Farmer Network, visit us at sfa-mn.org.